In this episode 91 of the Daily Hustle, it is the Mark Cuban week. We're talking about how to win at the sport of business, and specifically, we're talking about how to handle adversity, starting from the bottom, and ongoing education for entrepreneurs. Also, we talk about Dennis Rodman, the worm.
Broadcasting from the box that rocks and Thrive15.com world headquarters, it's the Daily Hustle with Daniel McKenna.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into the Daily Hustle. It is episode 91. Over to my left, fresh back here in the city of Tulsa, Marshall F. Morris. Over here, Daniel McKenna, and it seems like we have a mic set up in the middle. There is not a ghost there. If you're wondering, there's no ghost. We're not using that mic. We're not using that. Marshall, how are you doing today?
I'm doing spectacularly. I feel good.
All right, good. Today we are talking about how to win at the sport of business. This is basically like a Mark Cuban week. It's like a Mark Cuban week.
Entire week.
It's like an entire week of Mark Cuban.
All right.
This is from his book, How to Win at the Smart Sport of Business, episode 91. Before we get into it, episode 91, of course, that makes this the worm. This makes this the Dennis Rodman episode.
There it is, Dennis Rodman. Finally, we're getting back to basics.
Finally, back to basics and what really matters. Dennis Rodman, if you don't know who he is, he played for the Pistons, Spurs, probably most famous for his time with the Bulls, all the crazy hairstyles he had. But basketball-wise, he earned all defensive first-team honors 7 times, NBA Defensive Player of the Year twice, led the NBA in rebounds per game for 7 consecutive years, and won 5 NBA championships. His biography states that he is arguably the best rebounding forward in NBA history. And he was like, I don't know, 6'8", something like that. Not like a super tall dude.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
He was awesome.
Controlled the boards.
Yeah. You want him on your team.
And he had like cheetah hair, and he had like lime green hair, and he had like purple hair. It was like a new for every game.
That's right.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. I mean, it seems like it'd be annoying, but that's pretty cool.
You want him on your team.
Okay, so Marshall, let's get into this. This is from Mark Cuban's book, How to Win at the Sport of Business. You are a business coach here at Thrive 15, so I want to get your take on a lot of this, but we'll start right from the top where he's talking about the dream. This is what Mark Cuban says in his book. He says, I did it too. I would drive by big houses and wonder who lived there. Every weekend I would do it. What did they do for a living? How did they make their money? Someday I would tell myself I would live in a house like that. I read books about successful people. In fact, I read every book or magazine I could get my hands on. I would tell myself that one good idea would pay for the book and could make the difference between me making it or not. I worked jobs I didn't like. I worked jobs I loved, but that had no chance of becoming a career. I worked jobs that barely paid the rent. I had so many jobs, my parents wondered if I would ever be stable. Most of them aren't on my resume anymore because I was there so short a time or they were so stupid I was embarrassed. You don't want to write about selling powdered milk or selling franchises for TV repair shops. In every job, I would justify in my mind whether I loved it or hated it, that I was getting paid to learn, and every experience would be of value when I figured out what I wanted to do when I grew up. Now, Marshall, before we dive into this and kind of relate it back to the small business owner, the entrepreneur that are watching or listening to this show, Mark Cuban, give the folks at home a little summary of what you know about Mark Cuban. I mean, we didn't even get into this. It's not like you were prepped with specific facts. What do you know about Mark Cuban?
Yeah, Mark Cuban, he's the fanatical guy on the sidelines of the Dallas Mavericks games, one of the Dallas Mavericks owners. And he's become a successful venture capitalist with all of his millions of dollars that he's been able to pour into different companies.
So his background, just in case you don't know Mark Cuban's background, and we'll get into some of that stuff here a little bit, but the punchline, the end here, is he sold his first company for multi-millions of dollars. That was Micro Solutions. He then used that money to build a company called Broadcast.net, I believe, which delivered radio signals over the internet. Sold that to Yahoo for literally billions, with a B, billions of dollars, and ended up doing things like buying the Dallas Mavericks. You've probably seen him on Shark Tank, the ABC show Shark Tank. That's Mark Cuban. That's who we're talking about. So, Marshall, he's talking about growing up as he was getting into his entrepreneurial career. He worked a ton of different jobs. He worked some stupid jobs. He worked some good jobs. He worked some jobs he hated, some jobs he loved. But he always justified it in his mind as he was getting paid to learn about that job, about that industry, some sort of skill set that came along with what he was doing. What can the entrepreneur take away from this sort of thinking that they might be able to apply to where they are currently, or maybe even looking back 5 or 10 years about what they've been doing?
Yeah, so as a business coach, I work a lot with businesses around the country, and one of the things that I see frequently with them is the need for their ongoing learning, their ongoing investment into themselves. And when you do that, you're always going to be able to adapt. You're always going to be able to learn new things. You're always going to be able to increase your own personal value. And so what you have to do is you have to make a commitment to ongoing learning. When you make a commitment to ongoing learning, you're going to be able to achieve all these things. So whether it's working a job that is currently bridging, one job to the next, maybe it's doing something that you necessarily don't want to do, but whatever that thing is, you have to approach it with the mindset of ongoing learning. And when you do that, you will definitely be successful, like all of these other multimillionaires that we talk about and these success stories that we talk about.
I love that he said that the way he approached it was, if there was one good idea, it would pay for the book. One good idea, it'd pay for the magazine. And that's what he saw as the difference between him making it or not, was getting those ideas, learning those sort of things. And that sort of mindset plays super heavily into his whole story and how he got to where he was, and we'll get to that here in a little while too. And I just like his mentality of how every job was him getting paid to learn. I think a lot of people will approach a job that they're in now, and maybe they don't want to be in that job. Maybe they want to be further up the food chain, or maybe they're trying to get into something else, and they look at it strictly as the $10 an hour, the $12 an hour, the whatever they're making, and like that's what they see as the value of the job. He had so many different jobs in so many different industries. He probably picked up a lot of different skill sets, and it probably gave him a good idea of how to relate to different people in different industries. And I'm sure a lot for his investing type stuff, I'm sure it helps him a lot further on down the road. So
Sure.
I thought that was really cool. So the next part here, he decides he wants to do something with computers. He went to school at Indiana. The only reason he went to school at Indiana was because that was the only place that would let him get in that he could afford. So that's why he ended up at Indiana, which has a good business school. Through a job agency, a temp agency, he applies to a company called Your Business Software. So here's the setting. He's living in Dallas. He's in an apartment with 6 dudes. He's one of 6. He does not have his own room. He lives on the couch or on the floor, depending on what time at night he got home compared to when the other guys got home. His stuff is literally just in a pile. Like his stuff, there's no closet. He's got his pile, and that's where all his clothes are and stuff. Like that's how he's living, right? And him and his buddies would look for different jobs every weekend, the classifieds, that sort of thing. He decides he wants to do something with computers. He applies through this job agency to a company called Your Business Software. It's the first retail software store in Dallas, okay? He has no experience with PCs. He has no reason that he should get this job. He basically gets the job because there aren't a lot of other applicants, and he agreed not to go back and tell the job agency. They were like, well, if you just come work for us and never go back, we don't have to pay the fee, so we'll give you the job if you do that. And he was like, all right. So he just didn't go back to the job agency. The job agency just figured he just dropped off the face of the earth. He went and started working here at Your Business Software. Go ahead and start reading here his first experience. This next part's a little bit long, but I'll have you start reading here his first experience. Remember, he wants to do something with computers. He has no discernible skills at this point. This isn't the multi-billionaire, Mark Cuban. This is the guy that's been selling trash bags door to door and also started a bar in college before he could legally drink. That's this Mark Cuban, okay? Go ahead and start reading there about where he is with his story.
As fired up as I was about the job, I was scared. Why? Because I've never worked with an IBM PC in my life. Not a single time. And I'm going to be selling software for it. So what do? I do what everyone does. I rationalize. I tell myself that the people walking in the door know as little as I do. So if I just started doing what I told my boss I would do, read the manuals, I would be ahead of the curve. That's what I did. Every night I would take home a different software manual and I would read it. Of course, the reading was captivating. Peachtree Accounting, WordStar, Harvard Graphics, PFS, DBase, Lotus, ACCPAC.
Sam, do you know any DBase or Lotus? Do you read those softwares? Oh, Sam knows Lotus. Okay, sorry. Keep going, Marshall.
I couldn't put them down. Every night I would read some after getting home, no matter how late. It was easy on the weekends. After drinking that cheap champagne, I wasn't getting out of bed till about 9 p.m., so I had tons of time to lie on the floor and read it. It worked. Turns out not a lot of people ever bothered to RTFM, read the freaking manual. So people started really thinking I knew my stuff. As more people came in, I could offer honest comparisons because I knew all of the different software packages we offered, and customers respected that. Within about 6 months, I was building a clientele, and because I had also spent time on the store's computers learning how to install, configure, and run the software, I started having customers ask me to install the software at their offices. That meant I got to charge for consulting help, $25 an hour that I split with the store. That turned into a couple hundred extra bucks per month and growing. I was raking it in, enough that I could move from the Hill Hotel, that's what we called our apartment, where the 6 of us lived, into a 3-bedroom apartment across the street, where instead of 6 of us, there were only 3. Finally, my own bedroom.
Okay, I'll stop you there real quick here. Being a business owner, being an entrepreneur, we've talked about this several times before. You've given us the Reid Hoffman quote about how basically a startup is like you're trying to build your plane. You jump off the cliff, you try to build your plane on the way down. Talk to us about your experience as a business coach and where you've seen business owners who didn't necessarily know everything, but had the guts to go ahead and get out there, right? Or had the guts to go ahead and get out there and start doing their business. Maybe they don't know about Facebook ads. Maybe they don't know about search engine optimization. Maybe they don't know how to design a website, but they know that they are good at, they can train dogs, or they can, they do clinical research, or whatever it is that they found their niche that they either love or they're really good at. They know they don't know everything, but they go ahead and get out there. In this example, Mark Cuban had no knowledge about computers, but he taught himself. He read the manual. He did all the work necessary to become an expert in that field, so he knew what he was talking about. Talk about that mentality a little bit, about the entrepreneur who doesn't know everything, probably knows that they don't know everything, but is willing to get out there and willing to teach themselves along the way so they can become that expert in that area.
Well, the thing to understand is that there is going to be nobody else that comes in and motivates you. There's not going to be somebody else that holds your hand through the process. There's not going to be somebody that reaches into your life and is more passionate about your own success than you. And so what you have to do is you either have to find an accountability partner or a business coach, or find somebody that can actually motivate you and hold you accountable to the things that you need to do. And when you do that, you'll find that you're continuously moving forward, and you have to start moving forward before you actually know the path. And so a lot of business owners, they'll talk to their business coach and say, hey, I don't know what I should be doing. Tell me what I should be doing. But really, the important thing is you need to start moving forward before you have a business coach. You got to just start with the action. You got to define where it is that you want to go and start making moves towards that end goal. Because when you do that, what you'll find is that action is actually what creates the momentum and creates the motivation. It doesn't happen the other way around. If you're waiting for the inspiration or the motivation to happen, then it'll never come and you'll never actually start. So what you have to do is you have to start first. You have to start learning. You have to start building your business even before you know the entirety of the path, because that is the one thing that your business coach can't help you do. He can't help you start. He can't help you take action. He can show you the path, but he can't actually start with the motivation and the learning.
That was good.
Yeah.
I actually appreciated that. That was really good.
Yeah.
To find out more about the business coaching that we do here, log on to thrive15.com to find out more about that. And we'll talk a little bit about that too before we get out of this, maybe talk about some of the workshops. Let's keep going here with the Mark Cuban story. He finally has his own bedroom. He moved out of the apartment of 6. Now it's an apartment of 3, right? He's got his own bedroom now. He's got his own bed to sleep in. He says, I was earning consulting fees. I was getting referrals. I was on the phone cold calling companies to get new business. It's a weird concept. I even worked out a deal with a local consultant who paid me referral fees, which led to getting a $1,500 check. It was the first time in my adult life that I had more than $1,000 to my name. That was a special moment, believe it or not. And what did I do to celebrate? No, I didn't buy better champagne. I had these old ratty towels that had holes in them and could stand on their own in the corner. They were so nasty, I needed a shower from drying off after the shower. So I went out and bought 6 of the fluffiest, plushest towels I could find. I was moving on up in the world. I had the towels. Life is good. Marshall, of all these stories that we read, that we talk about in here, I think what holds a lot of people back is they feel like they can't pull it off, right? They might have an idea of what they want to do. They might have dreams of what the type of life they'd like to live, but they don't necessarily believe that they themselves can pull it off. They don't know. They don't have the skills or the talents they think to pull it off. How many mega success stories that you know of start from the bottom? Start from this place where getting towels is the biggest thing in the world. Like having nice towels is something worth celebrating. Does this sort of story happen all the time with these mega successes?
Yeah, what frequently happens is that all of these mega success stories, the thing that they have in common is they don't have access to a ton of resources. It doesn't matter really where they start, whether they start with an investment, whether you're somebody like Jeff Bezos who has family, his parents, that have the ability to invest a ton of money into his business. His family actually funded his business. Then you look at somebody like Steve Jobs, who didn't have anybody to invest a ton of money into his business. He had to go cold call investors in order to get Apple Computer off the ground. So it doesn't matter where you start. The thing that's in common behind them is they all act like they have nothing to lose. They all act as if there is no retreat. There is no going back on the boats. You're burning the boats. You're burning the bridges behind you, and therefore the only direction forward is success. You treat yourself as if it does not matter whether or not you fail. You treat yourself as hell or high water, I'm going to make it work.
Bill Gates, the Bill Gates quote here, if you are born poor, it's not your mistake. But if you die poor, it's your mistake.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's saying, like you have the choice to do something about it if you choose to. The other thing that about these mega success stories is it's never a 6-month and then then your life is good story. Right? It's never had this idea and we worked really, really, really hard for an entire year, and now I'm set. Now we're good. It's never that story, right? It's a story of like 5 or 10 or 20 or 30 years. And that's when they get to their success point, right? So how much of this, too, is patience and persistence? How much of this is knowing, like, I can do this, I can pull this off. Also, I know it's probably going to take longer than what I think it's going to take. Like, talk about that mindset just a little bit before we keep going.
Yeah, so Bill Gates, he also says most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And so what he's talking about is it's not an immediate payoff. You're building and investing, you're literally investing into the future. And so when you do this, you're setting yourself up for a long-term reward. You're setting yourself up for the reaping what you sow now. And so it's going to be hard. And chances are, if you're in the trenches right now and you're a business client working with a business coach, or you're somebody looking to start your business, or maybe you'd like to become a business coach, but you don't know where to start, really your success is going to happen years from now. And you're probably going through a really difficult time right now building your business. I'm working with a number of clients as a business coach right now, and they are, some of them are really, struggling, okay? They have like real issues, but they understand that they need to work now, which is so cool because they're taking so much action and they're turning over their businesses. All of these clients are turning over their profits and becoming insanely more profitable in just because they want to get better, because they have that growth mindset. And so just because you're going to have success in the future doesn't mean it's going to be easy now. In fact, it's going to get difficult before it does get easier. You got to invest and pour into yourself for time and time and time. And then the success curve hockey sticks. Okay? You finally get to that point where you can step out of the business and you don't have to operate the business every single day. And that's a really cool feeling.
Let's finish this up here. The light just went off here, Sam. The light just shut off. Now the video is going to be weird. For the podcasters, though, they don't know any difference.
Nope.
So if you're at home, just turn off one of your lights in your room, and it'll be similar to what we're experiencing here. So just do that. Okay, so here's the last part here, Marshall. We'll dive into the last part of this for this episode. And now we're talking about a little bit of setback that Mr. Marky Mark had. Like you were just talking about how it's going to get a little bit harder before it gets easier, right? This is what he says. He says, then one day, remember, he just got the towels. New apartment. Got the towels. Living the good life. He says, then one day, about 9 months into my career as a salesperson/consultant, I had a prospect ask if I could come to his office to close a deal. 9 in the morning, no problem to me. Problem to my boss, Michael Hernecki. Michael did not want me to go. I had to open the store. That was my job. We were a retail store, not an outbound sales company. It sounded stupid to me back then, too, particularly since I had gone on outbound calls during the day many times before. I guess he thought I was at lunch. It was decision time. It's always the little decisions that have the biggest impact. We all have to make that make or break call to follow orders or do what you know is right. I followed my first instinct to close the sale. I guess I could have rescheduled the appointment, but I rationalized that you never turn your back on a closed deal. So I called one of my coworkers, Barbara Depew, to come in and open the store. I went to the client's office and closed the deal. Next day, I come into your business software, smile on my face, check in hand from a new customer, and Michael fired me. Fired. Not the first time it's happened, but it reinforced what I already knew. I'm a terrible employee. I just had to face facts and move on. Rather than getting back on the how the hell am I going to find a job train, the only right thing I knew to do now was to start my own company. Marshall Napoleon Hill has the quote, every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. I think anything that you go through in your life you can't say it's all good, but you can a lot of times later on look back and be like, I learned this because of this situation. I now have this perspective on life or on my business or on my career that I didn't have back then. Talk about this concept that Napoleon Hill is talking about how every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit.
Yeah, so everything that you go through, everything that you persist through, if you give yourself the opportunity to embrace the perspective that this is going to make me a better person, or I am learning something from this, I am gaining from my experience in this situation. If you approach it with that perspective, then you're going to come out greater on the other side. It might not be fun, it might not be comfortable at the time, but you will persist further, you will go there faster, you will ultimately better yourself in the long term if you approach these difficult situations of adversity with a growth mindset. Now, the thing is with Mark Cuban is he said it in here. It's not the first time that it's happened, but this is what actually catalyzed him. This adversity is what catalyzed him into wanting to start his own business. He finally realized that, hey, I'm not going to be a good employee. I never really have been a good employee. So I think it's about time that I've now learned on all of the things from these previous companies. I think it's time for me to go do my own thing. That was the threshold that he had to cross in order to get himself going into his own business and investing in himself.
Kind of a fun hypothetical. What if Mark Cuban Like, what if Michael the boss was super cool, and Michael the boss was like, hey, man, I know that you're supposed to open up the store, but you did go get some money for us in the business, so that's cool. Good job. And what if, he praised Mark the whole time and promoted him to general manager, and Mark Cuban made $60,000 a year for the rest of his life, never started that company, never got started here. I mean, what if that happened, right? Like, what if that adversity never happened to him? What if he just lived out the rest of his days as a sales consultant guy, and he never realized his destiny as the billionaire owner of the Dallas Mavericks?
I believe that if it wasn't this scenario, if it wasn't this instance, then it would have been another one.
Okay.
I think as time approaches, most entrepreneurs will realize their vision for the company or for themselves in starting a company.
Okay. That quote one more time, Napoleon Hill: every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. Marshall, we teased it just a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the conferences that we do here in the building. If you go to thrivetimeshow.com/workshops, you can find out more about this. But I want Marshall to tell you about these conferences and why, for you, they matter. Marshall does a lot of business coaching. He's a business coach here at Thrive 15, along with several other of the business coaches here that work with small businesses and entrepreneurs all over the nation on a weekly basis. But I want you to tell them about these workshops that we do here, Marshall.
If you're thinking about hiring a business coach, or you think you need a one-on-one business coach moving forward in your business, then at least start with checking out one of our conferences, okay? Maybe you're not ready for a business coach yet, but maybe you feel like you want to get ahead in your business. Our conferences are awesome for people that maybe aren't ready to make that full monthly investment and at least get to see the curriculum and see the program that we do here at thrive15.com. Every month we have a 2-day intensive workshop where we cover everything that you need to know about business, from customer service to sales to marketing to PR to closing deals, how to set up your accounting, how to create a unique value proposition and brand your company. It is awesome. And we have a number of different business coaches here that do business coaching for a lot of different businesses around the country. I myself am one of the business coaches. I am a business coach for clients in California and Florida and New Jersey. And so if you are wanting to know more about the conferences, you can go to thrivetimeshow.com/workshops, but it's a 2-day intensive workshop here in our headquarters, and it's guaranteed to be a game changer for your business.
Boom. Well, that is it for episode 91, the Dennis Rodman episode. We're going to continue Mark Cuban week and his book, How to Win at the Sport of Business, in the next episode, episode 92. But until next time, over to my left, drinking copious amounts of Quick Trip coffee, Marshall F. Morris. Over here, Daniel McKenna. We will see you next time on The Daily Hustle. Boom.